啊，那这笑死，你别的不写起都弄。Yeah, okay. Good evening. Da la dang bar chi bi zha no bar chi bi ge tar wa dang tam chi xian bi par zu ju bar chi ba tam chi ji zu chi bi ma nam ka dang nyam bi sim chen tam chi de wa dang de dung ara dang chi Nyordu lana mi bara yang ta bara zobe chang chu rinpo che to bara cha dola dang bara chi bi cha no bara chi bi ge tarwa dong tam chi chen bi far zu ju bara chi ba tam chi je zu chi bi ma nam ka tang nyam bi sim chen tam chi Dewa tang den dung ra tang chi nyor de la na me bar yang ta bar zo be chang che ren bo che to bar cha. English or mothers? Ina.
All mother sentient beings, limitless space.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay,
You wanna
thank you.
You want to go ahead?
Yeah, okay. Söna, ta det tvång. Ja, you listen.
Right. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment.
Pi chi tu sam ma ji ji par tu lung a yi chuan ge wa la kor ma shi par tu lung a yi chuan ge wa la kor tu tu ren ne song de nye ma song ta sam ji par tu Lunga yi son ge ba la go.
For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
야, 제 도전 선전대로 나로 담만에 사고 포든 지평 공가지 심단 자변은 매샤서 유는 예듬 조용나 서반데 서 다주 신제로 야, 되네 다 컨상티게 들어와가랑서 나사 동아 개회 인연이 봐. 매 방세 티나한테라. 안데 원장 슬라도 되는 삼다 도들이 말아.
Disco ungan di chira kara yongdo sena
원장 내 당부 발라 심전 로종의 남체 이톱다고 슬라도 tingi jola serwa dage chuni gumai be ma bang sa terwa ta zai tsaryo ma ka zang na la
okay
on
chokta
jang
na duk
ta ma te te me ita ta te plan
ale atab shambadwe
te in de
나도 같은 로차레 디스코 은경 나다네
de
또또빠 미니에 가요 디 랍차레
nga ba
레레
nga
드니
ba ju
디네 아 미니에 가요 당
ma ma cha de on jang sa sam da sto de on
디차르와
re so so
uh-huh
on jang
oh yes okay I got it mm-hmm.
on jang da le chang bo ba ji tang ta zi dong a na cha dong a zi na lam sang ga zo le chang bo yin lo jong ya le la wo yo ma re si le la wo yo ma ro ga zo ti na cha to shu qin bo yo wang qin bo yo le gan ge qin bo yun zi lo jang le la wo yo ma re si yin na ta le chang bo zi lo jang de lam che le top da go lo jang sam lo ya bo dang so ti ta na cha to zo pa le na cha sin da yin na da dong a yin na de zi wang tu ma shuo ba jin de zi si lam se zhang che le top da ne 我曾经说落地讲解的说光复个这些，我这我是东安中的塔皮呢，没离了没把没天电把没有，好像可惜我在那啥我呢这个他没把带进来才是他就其他人嘛的，可是呢，他你嘛可惜他这边把没天他就用处多讲着了，那可我小时候家是这些，我真的偏哪才是，嘛偏哪才是，我这就老给的真的没啥。 明白点样子，没记挺多啊。你那咱俺当初在来长波班呢，这光晓从弄给伢子了，天窗没把弄给从那偏给了。你那他在地学手情报家，地嘛偏的人穷呢。哦，他俺们在上超一，他的弄给伢子地是这个什么的什么的，他就前面是上上了，真的，到上周做个嘛的，这就咱俺当初面上的差个的，是的，这俺当初那把的面天把这起的，这个面上的。 别介电脑要起来种说啥，光是看不出别个写上，他不让电过吧？他我真看不出写的，他们电过的，这可真也没拉的往上说，看不弄别写就那是帮过的，是拉不来天的，我真那啥东西就真的，查吧没骗，我真的让他面电查学的，买去买电脑上第四个来个吧，啊是真的，我讲让我没别那啥东西了。 这深度去讲，那啥差不没。我当时那啥东西是学到就要买的，他就有了面上的学到马片把起。那东西呢，说这上趟刚一起忙个，这种下有的，但可能是没事听了，好可以嘛。这种这种的，我真的，第那深度去的，偏多看要嘛的是。第是把三级补起，三级插起，三级我用插起。我听着去呢，真的累了，昨天了偏个这是。我这三了偏个，累了偏个，累三你给了偏个这是。 我对什么片呢？那啥在做茶，我讲这片给的，我听的，那这啥什么东西的嘛？那啥的，那这个在诺巴街有了吧？东岸的那啥都，诺巴这个呢，说什么东岸在什么这些的呢？这个都可以，我听的，什么罗江的蓝切托巴伊呢？得了起码了片托巴伊斯，我这起码了，最起码拿了片托个的，是这起码的这，可能那在你们俩做呀，等级托特别，片给的是，那啥东岸的给为呢？ W 上呢，先没碰过，从这那啥给你，在东亚厕所给别人的不是，上次那啥的东亚厕所全部在秋池下，这个圈里，我就前都没了，可惜就是全部都秋池下，我这里，我这呢，给别人的不是，这帮就蛮松的是。
So coming back to our text. So we were kind of in the middle of that verse number 5. I think in English it's 6, where we have said that we should take illness and suffering as the path. So we're kind of in the middle of that. And so then it continues by saying, however, so we should take it as the path whenever it comes our way. And then it says, however, beginning practitioners, they should first train their minds to transform adversity without deliberately seeking suffering or neglecting to treat illness. So sometimes you've mentioned before there is some real serious practitioners who reject any kind of medical treatment, who just even deliberately seek suffering in order to train their minds. But so this is not recommended for a beginning practitioner, because in the beginning it's actually not so easy to train the mind when we are sick or we are suffering a lot, and it's not so easy. So in the beginning, as beginners, we need to think that when suffering comes my way, I will try my best to practice with it, but you're not like deliberately seeking it. So as we mentioned before, there is those who think that I have taken refuge in the 3 jewels. That's my entire kind of refuge, my support. I surrender. I will just leave it all up to them. I won't take any medicine, and so on. But this is not recommended for a beginning practitioner. So that's because when we as beginners, we feel that the pain is too strong for us, it's wiser to actually take medicine at that time. And then we should think that I'm taking this medicine as it will support my practice. So that's the better approach. Because before, in a previous verse, we have mentioned the beginners should practice as previously advised regarding the appropriate diet, conduct or behavior, and also avoiding bad habits. And so sometimes oh yeah, and so then it says next it says, nevertheless, when illness and suffering arise, it is beyond your control, and then being upset about it doesn't help recover or get any better. And so if you can train your mind to transform what comes your way, you can transform these difficulties into a lasting benefit also for future lives, beyond this life. So sometimes, even if we are very sick, for example, and we can't fully get better, worrying about it brings no benefit. In fact, it can actually harm both the body and the mind. So so if you, however, take whatever comes as the path, and then that can actually bring some benefit. Even if you don't fully recover, it does benefit your mind. But if you keep worrying, then it adds to more suffering. So your body is already suffering, and then on top of that, it adds suffering to the mind. So as beginners, therefore, we should train our mind and take the difficulties as the path, so that they become the path. And so this will bring benefit also in the future. And so then it says here, therefore, considering illness and suffering as spiritual teachers, do not reject them. And so suffering is, it says here, is like a spiritual teacher, like a teacher. And that's because some people, if they don't experience suffering, they actually never think about the Dharma. So the Dharma, the suffering becomes a condition for them to practice the Dharma. So.
真的别抢着抢，那咱个做地方没用，咱地方那些这边人都做抢这样的我，他就有的话对这这边抢这吧的话，他就那我抢这样，而且一家啥这他就去啊有的意思的，他就穷这个的是别那啥这点呢，一家这样的话，但是错，那这不讲究的，错这不讲起过的是，错这不讲起，那真的驴那啥用嘛的。 so what in the Lu Nasa Yung at the Luke Jibal then, then the Nasa Yung Kura. Tin Lu does a chance out on the Igaza out on the Ruchin, or so sort of Johnson, and Besson. Or the Nazati Yang, Charles sent the lap peggy, Chimala peggy, yes. They hit the Nasa Yang, some pin the DJ Mambota, so Nasa some no down, Nasa and then so Jivang in Malay is on the Jivang in Malay, the Rex the Jep to town shore. They must see some chance and Nasa Carona, Titsomanga, Nasa and then some chance Nasa, Menhon shore. Or the reason was in the Dipa Mambot Tando is, what is the Tasun, that's also Dipa Tando should have only the Gawagom goes, Gawagom, Suzami, or Gawagom go and Ham Chagres. Or then Casa de Gremon Tando Yarora. Tara Chimbondo, Tando, Tara Chimbondo, and Sonton with Deo, go on Nava Zamji chance, water, Yenson don't Dipa. Yona, then go this not, and go not this chung that the ground was a whole kiloina. On go na concert that's a chung of tea. Or then go Nava some the great channel is Nana this person, some Yabochitomna. Or then just told me some book has that was darkish. Dagyan Julu Pumbo, Nana Nadi, Navaga, so that we could do Pumbo and Nana Nadi guys looks, Nasaling and Sibai, Nasa Siling, Sidu, Singasaling, Siba, Shushu Shava, Naso Jones. 这你讲完气体说气候气下子，你们俩气下毛毛就有的是，你看现在嘛，这把你长下气体的，谁能够做那啥穷啊？他这这把长下，这你们俩气的啥的？所以现在你们俩是做偏脱的学的，马上说，但你们俩在起码说那啥求心不讲这，但我们的家庭的那啥的什么当，这是我们的是家庭的那啥的把的穷的多这个，这穷的多，这路要我们讲，我们家下来呀，你们俩控制配合别。 Anze gom to nasa jabdi nasa de hiras mina ze yang so nasa de ha lang ru na gom ja san chi dum ne o to la de pen to ma to yo ma re sta nasa de nyam na chi ha la xie zong ba da ros
And then so for example, just as so just as we do prostrations or we recite mantra like the 100-syllable mantra, that in order to accumulate merit and purify obscurations, we make this effort to do these practices to accumulate merit and purify obscurations. Similarly, sickness too, when we properly understand it, also purifies much negative karma. And for this reason, we should welcome it with great joy, actually. And so, so illness arises because of obscurations. If we wouldn't have these negativities and obscurations, we also would not have any illness. So the fact that we have illness means we have to purify negativities, negative past karma and obscurations. And then when we make this effort, we will be able to purify them. This is why we prostrate and do other make effort in Dharma practices. And so similarly, we can think of it of suffering in a similar way. You can think that when you're suffering, so I'm suffering, I'm sick, but this is the result of past karma. And may it now become purified. And also, may I take on the sickness of all other sentient beings. With this thought, you purify a lot of negative karma and obscurations. And for this reason, it is cause of joy. You should rejoice in this experience because it's a powerful way to purify many obscurations. And then it is said, in the what is it? Tarching Dora. In the Great Liberation Sutra, it says, though you carry the karma for rebirth in the lower realms with you, it can be purified by a simple headache. And so it's a simple headache because now for Tibetans consider headache generally is not really a big deal. So then next it says, the Bodhisattva Thoma Sangpo says, when this illusory body of self and others falls ill, rejoice in the illness, as it purifies past negative karma. The various Dharma practices exist only in order to cleanse the two obscurations. That's the purpose of all Dharma practice. So if you practice when you're sick, it could actually really help you actually get better from your sickness. Sometimes you may feel in a lot of pain, and maybe you manage to meditate a little bit. In the beginning, you are thinking about your pain, you're fully aware of this pain. And then as you meditate, you may feel less pain, and you might even start to get a little bit better. And as your practice improves, then your condition can actually improve as well. So therefore, we can see how when we apply it to practice, the illness actually can become beneficial for practice. So.
我真的他出不得了，我出不得他这个去年古曼一边没碰中多，他这个他去年做多呀，古曼的我来是他帮你嘛来是，他在身边嘛一边，那把那啥当中啊，拉切过，他在公他在那啥，东啊去拉切过的是，身边的那把没碰为拉切过，说这是这都是身边切过哇。我这人他那把他在那啥东啊是拉切过的，身边的那把去叫嘛，这人这次我们帮拉切过的是。他给现在，这现在他我是那把钱看了吧？给现在在同样买的，他这人我这是给可学着了吧？这给这对他给现在我们看这了那把的是，他大看那把了垃圾大卫是，排泄控制啥吧？但警察这吧穷呢，我记着看着把我们插起讲，这样就把美女给出吧，他们头，真的拉不起来过的种多，我听人这个给去年给买一遍，没碰为拉不起来过是。
Then we come to the next verse that is here, but in our book 7, but in Drupal's book 6. But so it says, don't reject enemies and obstructions, since they are inspiration for your innate nature. So it says, then not only should we take suffering and illness as the path, we should also transform any harm caused by sentient beings as the path. So harm from sentient beings should be transformed rather than rejected. So sentient beings here refers to humans and non-humans. And here it mentions enemies and what does it say? Obstructors, obstructing forces, obstructions. So enemies and obstructors, literally. So enemies refers to human beings, so beings that we can see with our eyes, human beings who directly harm you. And obstructors or obstructing forces refers to the harm caused by non-human beings like spirits, so beings that cause harm but we cannot see them. And so when they threaten us and look for weaknesses in us to attack us, those spirits and so on, most people become angry or frightened, and they think of ways to defeat them. But no matter how hard you try to defeat them, you will never defeat all enemies or escape all obstacles or obstructors by running away. So then what should we do to transform them? It says, do not reject them. Do not reject enemies and obstructors, for they are the reminders of the ultimate reality.
真的，你们继续没了的吧？咱我们家的是吧？是我们家的，真的，我们把这开始练多啊。但我们把这开始练的，真的工作开的，俺生活了嘛，是俺做生活没事，其他生活就得落去了多少，这基本上做怕金把家过是，多少，真的继续没了的呗。因为生活都比较少了的生活没意思，经常说偏头嘛，多。在那对我们把这说咱经常你都看的啥学呢？ 这地呢这个是拉多下，这就么来，他啥做拉多工作了，啥做是，这啥样做的，啥做啥的，啥呢？天的我这工作，天的，没那他们都是天的，他怎么着了？漂亮工作，
Kutsu lapsam.
我图片了，人家说人家图片天现在这怎么录下去，图片拿录下那了吧？我说怎么是没呢？他们天这没那么天，怎么就是没了的呗？那怎么没呢？老忙不着送事，这相当于杨家啥在托是。好，那他弄这个就是这弄没呢，老忙不着送事。但呢，这杨家啥在托是，那你什么他就用啊，啥这个都是，啥是过这啥没得了，老忙不着送事。真的，那经常是啥这托是，那么啥杨家这托是啥了。我听你这这个工作，那就并没是开始说他脚步，什么都不能是，就并没是做那没叫我们事情都是，还那么多工作，要的，就当他那主要不是的，就当那就讲没随后呢，就当说，主要听你切都要嘛是，他们是主要不下坡去要价过着那么多下，这里可惜，哦嘞，他主要不价过的，就是么了要那么价的啥嘛这大，听你现在工作要大概要对口子要价嘛大。这就是么那边下岗不恰的是别难多，现在他别人家休这些多嘛的，这是什么怎么去那么多回人家休在这些多太好，那是马来被生下来，咱们这人家休这些多的，这工作这里休的呢，其实个里这送多空下的价码的大多讲的票上，呀，他应该说价格是，他经常说应该说要价格是，他经常应该说做那么早，咱们都不太能给某给可能说，
Kutsu.
工作我把开心了。你那我把这个他个相当说特别没意思，我就把那么大是啥意思？就把那么大面那么可希腊还在特别其他我说破我不是嘛的，特别没意思。我这拉不到过，这几年什么都听，这个那就把其他越透露下来没事情啊，咱们就拿落去这了。这个你们这些起码都买，先把都压着价码啥的哩，这些都，这就是门人姐姐的面子，这样子怎么去那么多？这这个说咋让你们呢？
Okay. So the story about Milarepa. So once Milarepa, he was meditating, and a few hunters came by, and they were looking for food and said, "We need food. Give us something to eat. Later we will make offerings." And Milarepa replied, "My food isn't suitable for you. It won't help you, but I can give you what I have." So he gave them his nettles. And so he put the nettles in
我说
that.
这两都，前两开的啥用的，俺是这个都是了。
Mhm.
那前两啥老来没意思的，前两开啥用的，这些人都真的
Yeah.
是。
So he said this. He said, "My food isn't good. It won't help you." And then they said, "Just give us whatever you normally eat." And then he said, "Oh, so well." And then that there is nettles. So he put the nettles in the pot. And then they said, "Well, nettles, if you have nettles, we also need some, it's kind of like tsampa, I guess, some kind of grain, basically some carbohydrate, some tsampa. We need some tsampa." Emilio Repa said, "I haven't had tsampa in many years." So instead of tsampa, he put some more nettles. Then they said, "Well, at least add some oil." And Milarepa said, "I haven't had oil in many years, but I'll add more nettles instead of oil." So he put in more nettles for the oil. And then they said, "Then add a little bit of salt." And Milarepa said, "I haven't had salt either for many years, but put in some more nettles to pretend it's the salt." So he put in more nettles. And then eventually the hunters mocked him and said, "You are so pathetic. You must have no merit if this is all the food you eat. Look at you." And Milarepa answered, "I'm a Dharma practitioner. I have no
我
possession."
听你那个这这现在那个说那气候一了，那么来。
Yeah. So, and he said, "I'm a practitioner. I have no possessions, but I am the most wealthy person in this world, nevertheless. Yet I have nothing for you to take." Then they got angry and they picked him up and threw him on the ground. Milarepa was quite thin, very emaciated and weak at that time. but they still did that to him. And still, he didn't see them as enemies. He saw them as ignorant sentient beings and had compassion for them. And they laughed and kept doing that, kept picking him up and throwing him on the ground and throwing rocks at him. And eventually one of the hunters said, "Don't do that. He's actually a real practitioner and he is so emaciated that what we're doing, that isn't right." But the others just ignored him and they kept doing what they were doing. And that one hunter then said to Milarepa, I won't harm you. Please give me the refuge." And the rest just kept mocking. And still Milarepa did not see them as enemies, just as ignorant sentient beings. And so this is how one actually needs to practice. So
와, 근데 전주 난 태송 초회 셈데 제좀나 자다 담치 좀당 자스보다 소 생각서 초와 공주在랑的랑제랑 파쇼제랑 대련요가 선거 차다说吧 어제 소소 초회 셈데 좀 톰나 자 파쇼 자도 좀 편나 이래서 어제 자세 갈리 가보제요 티나 다제 칸투도가 좀 섬도 섬다 전시 심마도 소소 공주 쇼 침보랑 파쇼제랑 대녀가 침보소 어제 차로 그러와 어제 자세 대신 거 사딩고 데다 고요데 진이고와 갈런스 사딩 정말다 고베 효된 고요토고 말와 지요토고 말와 고서는 게 많은 다 가서 후이나 함 뭐라 고도 그러와 고 여러 다 되는 게 요 말와 어 되는 다 대답해서 고베 갈런다 고가 다음 말아 사서마 고요구나 람티 잠지 고바네 사딩 잠지 요다나 람 크틸다 고바 요셔도 사서마 요셔도 설마 소토고 말아 깜베나 설마 마조 팽기라 와 티인치로 뭐포야 다크 쳔도 만나비 다크 셈데 쳔도비 샤나 도고 지히지고 소데네 다 치로 뭐포 카레드 다데 카다나 세 도야 섬도 당겨마스 소고테 랑크 셈소 도고르세 데 도송나데 샤나 랑기 도노레스
then it says in the Bodhicharyavatara, if I subdue this angry mind, it is like defeating all enemies. So, and that is because, mainly it's when we get angry, the anger creates all of our trouble for ourselves and others and between each other. If you can control your own mind, you tame your own anger, then there won't be any outer enemy. Of course, that's not so easy, but we should try to be mindful because normally we are not unmindful, and being unmindful, anger comes quickly and easily. Then it says in the same verse, then trying to cover the whole earth with leather, how could I possibly find enough leather? Simply covering the soles of my shoes with leather is like covering the whole earth with leather. So in the past, in Tibet, we didn't have real shoes, but we would basically wrap our feet in leather. We just put a leather on the sole on our feet, and that would be the shoes. So that's kind of an allusion to that. And then it says in the same verse continues, likewise, I cannot control all external objects, but if I control my own mind, what need is there to control others? So, so don't try to focus on controlling your outer environment or other people. What we need to control is our own mind. So.
这其实没来的别是种，其实我对呢，去忙的，但我去了这对过呢，忙的没得，你用群众嘛的是的，别讲这我这对呢，提加不了哈，这浪回来，这对呢，提加不这浪，现做了呀嘛，这我的，其实我对呢去忙，那什么对呢，这我没事，我他那质量什么的对他们呢，这我有嘛的事，我这种有吧，我这那些讲究那这种我，身边没事那么开心。 대다 형제 가라양 셀라요라 다다 딩고테 심지어 메시지 남가 나기리 남가 나기다 조로야 이제 심지어 이제 시당서 어떻게 조로야 마스 대다 정말 매 봐서 소토고 말해스 근데 소토가 깔래 가보러 와 Tendu tendu dan zo de rang sem de go re s dan rang so.
Mhm. Milarepa said, if you try to tame outer enemies, more will come, not less. If you get rid of one enemy, another will follow, and then another will follow. There is no end. But if you tame your own mind, there are no more outer enemies. And so in the Bodhicharyavatara, it says that beings are as limitless as space. There is no end to them. You can't destroy them all or control everything outside. It's endless. Mainly, you need to tame your own mind.
어 근데 다스 정도 rang sem chu ye wang ge zha mi ba zha. Da rang sem chu song de zha mi ba zha zin zhou ge. 长波门人强暴者从哪给下南唐这嘛这讲啊，他说他咋想着呀？他说忙不有了，我听到我们苍蝇那里，我他说想着呀，忙不有了，就是我那些南包在说着说的，可在去在咱们对待会儿也出过题在前头上，他说的啊在对对我他前头上他这起码出过跟他下头的说的，我在这没把什么这些老的没是这些老是的要么的是，让什么人sich那么的，是让什么的这很自着是吧？我这是那么的是。 学堂我这边是，真的学堂我的，在学堂上去嘛着吧，学堂我觉得学堂做是同样要嘛的，在上去出不得要嘛的话，天天那他俺让说俺自己学起送对真的，这学堂学起不学，送着学，俺做这俺自己学起不学就有了。 我真老种种吧，但是春堂过些的吧，当时去年我些钱呗，去购买些呢，没碰上我，在去年我些钱吧，但现在个过些了我大过说是吧？过些生秋可能这个我些过些的路，但这当一春堂在我些从头抢着个是吧？在去年我些钱呗购买些吧，没碰上，我在购买了一张，但去年我些那路说钱投票购买了一张，在帮助买的是。 어때 다른 지금 좀 그, 다들 요아 줄을 나쇼 세줄을 나쇼 가서 요아
Uh,
줄을 나쇼 세서 요를 나쇼
sorry.
세 어때 되게 난 가려서나 아 대체 매 줄을 나쇼라고 나고 나쇼
Oh,
대체 매 어디 나다 가려서나 저 어떻게 나쇼리 될 잡아지 요서와
oh,
나쇼세 사실 매로와
oh.
나서 마르스 당가서 나오래 나쇼
Mm-hmm.
어때 샤데 되게 개론 저 요사를 잡았을 때 교단데 강을 못 치고 늘때 참자로 요사를 대인들 들에 참바 망보제 요사 털스 지금 좀 근데 말 자로 살아 와 근데 나효도데 개론 세틱 당가 줄이 약고 냠나 치통 그 송을 봐 줄이 봐
Colombia.
공 줄이
Mm-hmm.
빼면 냠나 약고 좀 송.这是学生，今天中午哦，他也不认识，人那其他没看见吧，都假修，在我们都是教修，学的是眼科松是，在哪个？
Versus the Buri.
哦，我们中是学的都是，
Oh,
我们那时候也不穷么都是，咱一路也不穷那也不是，我们中的学的是来科的，也不买的钱多，
Gom Chunker.
我们中学是，
Gom Gyun Chosung.
这里你们也不买，就我们中学是来，那是眼科松是，
Mm-hmm.
今天中这种，在课别看出三多。
Mm-hmm.
这手 class 是啦，等下中国呢是别控制下去的，人今天中国就一轮就是可不用多是的嘞，你也提啦，也是这个啦嘛，说是这个被我说的强多，这一轮提你们呀，多少才可，啊，可是呢，嗯
Mm-hmm. So there's first this one. So let's see 1 second. So it is your deluded mind that labels someone an enemy when no enemy inherently exists. There is no independent enemy apart from your own perception and your own anger. So, for example, if you think of two people, at first, two people may be good friends, they get along very well. And then something happens, one says something wrong, and then the other one talks back. And in the end, they become enemies. This actually happens a lot nowadays, even in families. So we think the other person is the enemy, but the real enemy is our own grasping at that truth believing that this is really an enemy, this grasping at a reality, at the truth, at the truth of how we see things. That's the real enemy. Then you get angry. But when you look closely at anger, you see that anger also doesn't truly exist inherently on its own. But because our self-grasping is so strong, anger becomes very strong too. So looking at the essence of anger and the perception of enemies, look at the essence of anger and this perception of enemies, and do not reject those enemies, but recognize them as illusory appearances. These illusory appearances are manifestations of the four kayas. So that's the Nirmana Kaya, Sambhoga Kaya, Dharma Kaya, and Svabhavika Kaya. And viewing them in this way, use them, these enemies, as reminders of the luminous reality. That's another story from a time of Jigden Sumgun. And that story is told in teaching on the illusory body, then the Gyulu Nakshu. So Nakshu is like a place in Tibet, and in this place he taught the illusory body. So that's the name of the teaching. And so there it tells the story of a disciple of Jigden Sumgun, a monk named Nakshu Rebam, and he was a yeah. Yeah, so he was this fully ordained monk, and so during that time they were at Mount Kailash and they were doing retreat. He was along with many other retreatants, students of Jigden Sumgun, doing retreat at Mount Kailash, and so at that time that was the time when Jigden Sumgun gave these teachings on the illusory body, and so this. So those retreatants, these monks, did their retreat in Mount Kailash, but then after that they went to Drigong to meet Jigden Sumgun, and so among them was this monk who had practiced the illusory body, and he reported to Jigden Sumgun and said, "My practice of the illusory body has been going really well." And Jigden Sumgun said to him, "That's good, but your personality is a bit rough. I heard you have real temper and really bad habits that disturb others. So that's really a fault in your meditation." And when he heard that, the monk got really angry and he said that, "Who said that about me?" And Jigden Sumgun said, that actually it is very difficult to practice the illusory body, and it's not because anybody said it, but So he said that I had no intention of insulting you or telling you something is wrong with your meditation, but because the illusory body is a very difficult practice, I had to like basically trigger you a little bit. And so that's the only reason I mentioned it, just to kind of see where you are at. And when he heard that, the monk became really embarrassed. And then reflecting on that, his illusory body practice improved after that.
So because
the point of the illusory body is that when somebody insults you, can you see it as illusory? So that's what he was kind of trying to test.
really, or take me to say you said it.
Well,
Was it handed on a trouble miss? Handed on Tambalatina to the troll, so was a what then handed on Tambal trouble, Maris, ranking Renzi Doppet, J. Shavaris, and then Renzi Doppa, and J. Showers. The similar and Jerson, nobody said I'm not Jerson in the no Grislamdo.
Miller repara.
Oh, Madame, de Chini, Hina, Chorwines, de Chuni, Shina, Chordo Gris. Gizimala saison rate na ji sare tene tamba kungi dela gude guba ta tane ha ko ma de gude se ni ka de gude guba chakwan da se guba san de song de ze su chakwan da guba sa wa korang ke chi la gude chongwa xin tene rang tuwe to pan de sha ba des da do dun da rang tuwe to pan de sha de des wa den tunang gu ji da wa tans chuna chuni chibe kuma ma pons wa ta zha ban ji ge ji be sem ngo de na de tang bo ta zha ban ji pe mo ta gu xie la song de tang bo de jie ba me ba qiu ji gu ma chi ban ga ju me ba de long qiu gang mi de long qiu zo be gu ji jian ga me ba ba ne ba me ba de ne mi zhu ye gu ti zo ngo ye me ba de ngo ni gu do be ten jia ne chen ku de yin su la lo 等一家甚至人家的定系托吧，那个啥子。
Mhm.
Mm.
So then, regarding these obstructing spirits, Bara's Malchu states, so Bara apparently was a Drupa Kagyu Lama with the name Bara. And so there is some teachings that are called Malchu. And so in these teachings, he said, spirits have, gods and spirits have no inherent existence. It is your conceptual mind, your concept of spirits that manifests as spirits. So also, so the true enemy is the grasping at the enemy. There is no external enemy. Milarepa also said that if you see a demon as a demon, it will harm you. But if you see it as dharmata or reality itself, then it is liberated on the spot. It all depends how you perceive it. But grasping creates enemies. And so then there was this Gundaksena Trabar Rekare.
상반다 센서 말해. 매게 나 today. See that
Kare?
today. 다 하고 뭐 야 봐.
Michiri. I guess there was this person, I don't know if it was a monk or something, but this person, called Kundak, and he tried to throw filth, kind of smear filth on a spirit. And when he tried to do that, that filth appeared on his own face. And likewise, your confused thoughts appear as spirits. Recognize these as the confused appearances of your own mind, the actual manifestations of the four kayas, and therefore reminders of ultimate reality, reminders of the four kayas. Therefore, do not reject them. When fear arises, recognize its essence directly. Look at its essence directly. Fear never truly arises. So it is unborn. That is the unborn Dharmakaya. Because it is unborn, it also never ceases. That is the unceasing Sambhogakaya. Since it is not born or doesn't cease, since there is neither birth nor cessation, it has no intermediate abiding. That is the unabiding Nirmanakaya. These three, being inseparable in essence, constitute the Svabhavika Kaya. This understanding serves as a reminder of the ultimate reality. So knowing this, understanding this should give you this confidence when in the face of like fearful situations.
我的这真的那不变哪是那边版这有啥？有的是问长地吧他，笼统是基本着吧，他着了基本是涨是我等你嘛，这当年们去年，就是我这年们要不我的是他着加产这，他着加产着，去美加产这，去美加产这，这就自己听着其实那么多，我真自己写的真的，都快学长没来，我那现场介绍啥了？这现场真的老板用这个吧？这做法也不我那真的现场介绍什么的？我这真的你们来是，你们来要不要空盘着坐标？那自从咱这有啥，自从这的时候穷那这样的你们来空盘着坐标，这就偏多有啥的？他说这找把我找通了，咱们是这了是，这些别给让啰嗦吧，马错没是这些呢，咱让啰嗦晓得的，是马错要马人这种多，你嘛我说陪旁边就有的，这就把就这些人钱啥了吧？
啊，
就这个吃完这没节有啥，他吃完也没想，他没节有啥了吧？这钱啥的，我就从吃饭这了，从就从地有啥了吧？吃饭是就从的，马上到这地是拍有啥了吧？我那今这15有了15，没来的3亚件多啊，那着了呗。我听着别人不可没收啥，听着当下头接到个然后了。这农家的地是拍有啥了？我这是啥啥了吧？这拍人家了啥的，要拍了对偏多些了什么，他能拍到有啥了吧？我这起到了啥？这你给打穷出来是吧？真穷的，这15能别15别下场嘛，15收个了我。走的别走手的大别那所以呢，别帐篷的得是旧物别缠着是吧？这里情况是，这里个打这里进同们养着大的是养可能在是差不多的，各种的是同学是，看他跟这一来来都什么他也都在家不是，都在家的，可能都是他下学，他家有可能是也能的差不多能的去，
바로 그래?
咱嘛有了，
시카치송?
各种这咱嘛有啥吧？
알레,
그 메르 도데 자브로 저마르 냐시도 세데 자자
오,
코란 제들이 이시 로소 쇼라 데 요마 로소이라다
음, 음, 음,
다테 뭐 담바 로마 군게 다 담바 상지 로마 군게 다 다리 공도 된도 나 야보 쉬면 되네 군게 제라 구데 구비 랑케 동바 구데 총와시 와다 선생님 사자 이시네 니만 가서 파유别在那学这个的，等于可能。这现在就把这种这些的有啥了哇？种这些的这里嘛，这出版的出版有了老出版中，老出版中这或是嘛南看嘛拿回来是吧？弄回来是吧？但同时的个得去其他嘛，这个没当时所有啥了，所的那或者吧，所的出版的个人么什么只有些噻。这边是他们可只在家非常来噻，这家为嘛噻？这里说这个人么什么吃，这里个就东西的，就啥上的说吧，这里人么的可能说过讲只有很多事呢，这里这家可能这家总就说啥吧？我真正为啥的？
시카레디 로키 카레레?
老说吧，中在嘛哪儿是吧？
아니,
那
토바,
说吧可吧？哦
아니, 코바,
说吧是有了，
응,
真正我在对这里嘛在通红说的，然后去，
응,
南看这里，
응,
这里可他们只在家可啥的啥啥了？
응,
这家什么的，说了有啥了？说那会有了。
응,
这什么什么吃小啥了？这个什么？
응,
这里过去用这些的有啥了？
응,
就从这里在这里，所破讲什么吃有一多噻。
응,
这大概是要嘛，咱吹送的想着说啥了？这里这家那可能做就说啥了吧？
응,
咱等一下，他们过这现在不先把球这球队说是球队那么多哈，
응,
你真的在过呢？
응,
我真的让先怕下，马头运这些些吧，说出版没是我的让先吹送的啦。 我这想着说的是meetings。
응, second. So, it says then, for example, when staying in a solitary retreat that is said to be a haunted place, or when walking alone in an empty valley, or being in a charnel ground, the fear arises. And at that time, one should contemplate, and these apparitions, these spirits are nothing but creations of my own mind. Um, so in the old days, especially great practitioners often would deliberately go to frightening, haunted places in order to practice truth. But if they had no realization, then these places could actually be quite dangerous or harmful. But if they had realization, there was no harm at all. In fact, it would strengthen their practice. And in fact, that is because these spirits then become a support for their realization. Um, so that is so the various manifestations can become an enhancement to one's practice. And then it says so as when this person Gundag, and what is from before, who tried to smear filth on the spirit and found it on his own face. Concepts create spirits, the perception of spirits. There's one story Dubin remembered from his homeland about a church practitioner. So one night, so this church practitioner was in his cave to do church practice, and then he saw something moving over there in the dark. And it looked just like tall, like a person. It was swaying back and forth, was moving. What it actually was is nettles, and in Tibetan, nettles can grow very tall, and this one was just being moved by the wind. But he thought that's a demon, so he shouted a pet, but still it kept moving. Many pets, not just one. He shouted a few pets, but it still kept moving, and then his fear just grew stronger, and so finally he was so overcome by fear that he decided to attack it, and so he jumped straight into the nettles. But then he had thorns all over his skin, and his skin was burning. No, it's what nettles do. And so then he ran back into the cave, and he continued the practice, but then he saw something white. And then he thought, oh, now this must be the demon. So he picked up a rock and threw it at that white thing. But actually, it turned out that this white thing was just his Damaru drum. But now it was broken because he threw the rock. Yeah, because in the old days, they didn't have any flashlights or something. Now it's easy. You can just go there with a flashlight, but he didn't have anything like that. So in the end, all of this was just the creation. This demon, so-called demon, wasn't real. It was just the creation of his own mind. And so then it says that mind projects outward, but projects this demon outside, but no demon exists independently from its own side. And so then Rupan remembered another story from his homeland. So again, there was this church practitioner doing church practice at night. And so as he was practicing, so there was he had this fire pit with some coals in there. And when he looked up, he saw what looked like a sheep's belly floating in the sky. And he thought it's a demon. And so there was this fire pit there with the black coals. And so the first thing was he tried to strike the demon with his knife. He struck it with he struck that thing with his knife, but then he couldn't hit it. So then, he tried to hit the demon, strike the demon with the knife, but obviously couldn't hit it, and so he could basically miss the target. And then he took some of the black coals from his the embers in his fire pit, and so he tried to like draw some kind of I guess some magic diagrams on this demon. And so he was like just painting it full with his magic diagrams. And then in the end, it turned out that the demon was nothing else but his own bowl, his food bowl. So now it was just decorated with love diagrams. So he realized it was all created by his mind.
我在就查啥对在地里可能出我讲吃小啥了这么的，
Uh,
就查啥对是吧？
Oh,
这
so
么吃啥对可能就没土呢，就自然东地有啥的吧？这就查啥对在抽巴讲同样什么，这说说不讲什么吃小啥的吧？
Yeah, so he didn't realize that right away, actually. So because while he was drawing these diagrams on the ball, he was still doing chut practice, and then after being done with his session of chut practice, he kept doing the practice, and eventually, then he realized that actually that's just my ball.
我大才这个啥，这爬过去，然后球些这提醒我才啥的。我现在我这南头这说呢，让先爬的小马头，这有我是这喜欢情出啊，没事动啥的吧？
Okay.
我在让先结巴没吧？我是秋季做把汤，吃为让先一把了，一把我先呢，提呢两把小叫把其实我这让先才结巴，没把这先呢，这提呢两把叫我是，这没他这边。 人家那破人不去，习近平我查，习近平现在我查起种的话，人家
Thank you.
习近平没把这现在边我查起是，人家那破人不去，但我些种的习近平没把的，说现在我说你们两个那从哪，我这我查起是，我这找完了的那什么的完了，干嘛要用？是我这我那些新浪这些呢，这说想不大图标，那这偏多有嘞。 我就别讲这些，那咱那时候去了讲的是多么光呢？看公开的头脑起来，空气没到人就这不蛮这个。但没来这边呢，你们那批要看着在海马拉这就基本找到些，这多么光出来要学啥了？长毛呢？长毛没这吃完我那多么光都起来要嘛的，我别在那一类，这忙不用，那这这点的这先说我打图标，第是先让的第是我那这点的先我打图标，这娘们空图标做图标，我这就有的什么的吧。 이 바시 바시 시간도 냠반 조스 잡을 때는 스모다와 그만 있어 잡을 때는 스모다와 그거야 대요 세다 게이트 넣으면 있어 어때 샘플 뭐 내려오면 내 게이트도 넣어 누구 말이스 랑 춘이 챔바탄서 어때 랑 춘이 대 와동라 편도我那냠내 공통 줘야 편도 친구 좀 체스 어때 저게 남을 거리 젠 따고 어때 거리 저게 수 거리 친구 인 같은 거 하고 그래
So there is no independently existing demons, and the mind's true nature is unborn, luminous, dharmadhatu space, free from elaboration. Recognize this and rest in that state. Then fear itself repeatedly reminds you to look at the nature of the mind. Milarepa said that the true the enemy to see that they're grasping at the enemy, kind of the belief in there being an enemy, to see that this is an unborn fabrication, that is true practice, that is the best practice, if we can stay steady in that practice even when afraid. And actually, when fear arises and you look at the mind, the fear itself becomes the support for practice. For example, in the 6 yogas of Naropa, we practice Tumo, which is the inner heat. And so to develop Tumo, this heat, the practitioners would wear only cotton cloth, very light, in winter time when it's very cold. And that's the right condition for developing tumo. If you're feeling very warm, then the tumo practice doesn't really develop. Only in cold conditions, in conditions like Milarepa did, and that's why he went to these high mountain places. Only in these conditions can real tumo arise. And so similarly, we face demons or fear. We must face them, we must face the discomfort of cold. We face the demons of fear. And if you can look at them directly, they will actually enhance your practice. So therefore, recognizing this and resting in that state, you seeing these demons and fear itself then keeps reminding you of your true nature. Then those spirits cannot harm you and actually benefit your practice. And so therefore it says enemies and obstructing forces should therefore be seen as kind benefactors.
他就是我先说跟告诉嘛，讲他想他上年那里把其他下过多的，几岁没来，现在的马林上年，长满穷了，过见多。我在那上面嘛，到上年下过吧，其实大家那就比如说。
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, we are already over time. Rupan said I got a bit carried away. But so we stop here. We are also in the middle of that song and we continue there next time.
Yeah, next week.
Next week.
真的这里给现在时间总共，这是English 就是。
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of Yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes and heroines, Yogini and assembly of Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ina tu je che khazang ngi ye je yuro ze ko.
Tinga tango laso ngati tanda tango.
Yeah, yeah, tu je.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much, Chupanla
Thank you.
and Ina.
Fun. Thank you, Ina.
Bye, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Ina.
Bye.
Oh, Ina. Hi. Good to see you.
You.